Hi again. This is going to be a much shorter video than the last one. I'm just going to tell you a quick story about what I did with a cold steel ply waster. Everybody who's had one of those, it's a cold steel training sword they call it, probably knows that they're very blade heavy. They're, balance point 6-7 inches out. It doesn't weigh very much as a sword, but it feels like it weighs a ton because everything is out on the other end. I have one of those. I got it a long time ago when it first came out, and I used the pine tree in my backyard as a pellet, and I just beat this thing half to death. It's this one right here. And when I got my Rawlings and my Zugadora, I just basically retired it, and it sat around collecting dust. Then a few days ago, I was on M-Blade's site, and they have something called a swing, and it has the hilt of a longsword, and then it has a blade at the end of it that is about the same length, and it has weights screwed onto it, and it's flared like a training sword, and then it tapers out to this blobby weight thing, and it looks really neat. And they've actually designed these for a confined space, small areas so you can practice. And I wanted something like that. That's why I built the Shadow for EI, and I wanted something like that for a longsword. And I started looking at the prices on that, and I thought, I have other things I could be doing this with, because I started thinking about the waster. And what I ended up with was something that you might be interested in. You're looking at it now. Here's the waster, and there's the rest of it. I cut it off, and it's got a rubber tip on it that's actually the retaining ring from a cold steel boken to hold the suba on. I started out with 24 inches. The blade, I believe, is 36 inches. I'm not totally sure, but I cut it at 24 inches, and then I just started playing with it, and I cut it a half an inch at a time till I ended up with 22 inches for blade. And balance point on this, I know static and dynamic are two different things, but it's a good starting point. Balance point's 4.5 inches now. It was almost 7 inches before. It weighs 2 pounds now, and it feels like a longsword. I mean, you know that if you use wasters and wooden ones and these, and they always feel different. I have the closest thing I had before was, of course, the Zugadora, and it has the cross from a cold steel hand and a training sword like this. It doesn't have the curve on it. I thought that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen on a sword, so I modded it so that this fits. I had to actually sacrifice one of these to make a washer to fit in there. I ground it down until all that's left is this tiny little rectangle. That was fine. But anyway, this was, for me, the gold standard. A lot of people don't like these. They say they're too light, they're too whippy. I don't see that. I really like it. But it's not a sword. It feels like something that isn't a sword. It's light and whippy, and it feels, I guess, like a windless regular sword would. Some of the ones that they have are really super light blades. That's what that feels like. This thing, on the other hand, I had no idea when I started this project that it was going to come out this well. I'm lucky like that. This isn't skill. It's just pure dumb luck. If you go out in the dark and practice with one of these set up like this, you forget that it's a waster. This thing feels so much like a longsword, it's scary. And I can practice indoors, which is, like I said, why I do these other things, because the weather here isn't always great. I have space indoors, but it's not a huge space. And being married, my significant other takes a dim view of cuts in the ceiling and knickknacks and stuff like that. So I had to figure out a way around that. That's this. You probably notice, if you have one, that's I was going to tell you about earlier about having to refinish it. You notice there's a step in it right here. See that? And if you look at it, there's no edge on it, and it just looks kind of matte finished, I guess you'd call it. Well, this is what I had to do to it after I had just basically killed it on the tree in my backyard. It was so chewed up that I took a grinder and I ground it down. Now, after you do this, you have to throw away the grinding wheel because it'll be full of plastic. But after that, I wire wheeled it very nicely and lightly, and it came out nicely. It came out with a really decent kind of finish on it. There's a couple spots where I hesitated for just a second on the wire wheel, and it was enough to grind right into it. You have to have a really light touch if you're going to do this. But of course, if you guys haven't been beating trees in your backyard, it's kind of this is just kind of academic. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. You'll probably notice on this also that the rubber retainer is gone off of this end of the blade. This thing fits in here so tight, and since it's not going to be a contact weapon anymore, I just didn't even worry about it. If you want to transport it in a mailing tube or something, it's 32 inches long now, and you have to take that off, and you probably know, running that thing down there, it's not good. If it ever does work loose, it's not going to come up anyway because this is on the other end. This is much tighter because it's smaller around, and it's just a good, a bouncy, kind of a safety valve in case you actually hit something with it. And that's, I don't know what I'm going to call it, so I think I'll just call it Stubby. That's my Stubby waster. Yeah, if your guys are tired of it, you can do something like that with it. Now, these are the same size, or they were before I cut this bottom one. So this kind of gives you an idea. Let's see if I can get a good shot of this. What the difference in size is. It's almost half. I took almost half of it. So there it is. I would think that if you were going to, the reason that the M blades come out with their swing is something for confined space and also for travel, something you could put in your luggage, that sort of thing. This thing is 32 inches long. There's no metal in it at all. So I'm thinking that you might be able to just put this in your luggage if you were going to travel, or put it in a duffel bag or whatever, and it'll be a handy thing to take with you. And again, like I said, you won't notice the difference between this and a longsword unless you're really getting picky. This is much closer in feel to an actual live steel sword than anything else I own. So you might have the best of both worlds here: a light, portable, easily transported training tool, and a training tool that feels like a real sword to boot. So anyway, that's it. If you have any questions, just like last videos, go ahead and you could just post them, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Thank you. Have a good day.